What's up, everybody? I'm James. Welcome to Mechanical Mayhem, and this is part 1.5 of the Mechwarrior 5 Clans playthrough. Yes, part 1.5 because this is going over the interface we gain access to once we complete the Huntress arc. We're going to be seeing this interface a lot through the campaign. I'm going to be going through it a lot, just like you would be once you play it. But I wanted to take the time here and now to go a bit more in depth in explaining what's going on within all these different options we have access to. Because once we go through them in the part 2 and so on, I'm just going to go through them organically and naturally, and I'm not going to necessarily take the time to go super in depth because, well, I've done that here. So I wanted to do this because this is an important part of the game. It's not just about blowing stuff up in a mech. That's really cool, but this is also going to be pretty important to understand how to navigate and make use of. It's not hard at all, but admittedly, there are some things that I didn't really pay attention to that in my first playthrough that once I did, I realized, wow, I could have been much more efficient and effective if I just paid more attention. So I want to go through all that here for you, so should you be waiting to purchase the game or whatever, or just deciding to start out and you happen to stumble across this, you will be better prepared to navigate the stuff effectively, if that makes any sense. So, no combat here, no missions here. We'll get to that in part 2. As you saw at the end of part 1, it puts you right here into Mission Central. So I'm going to go over everything we see from the top of the screen down, and then we will go through the different tabs we have access to, more or less. So at the top, you can see underneath Mission Central, it has got a highlighted line underneath it. That's how you know where you are in case you're curious. It's highlighted so you know you're there. Next to that is Facilities. This is going to be stuff with like where your mech bay is, repairing, research, and purchasing stuff is going to be here. Barracks is your star. You and your star mates are in the barracks, as well as the sim pod, and that's where you can replay past missions, do some tutorial stuff in there as well. In addition, you can click on each individual star member, including your character, and spend experience points for skills, and we'll see that when we click on it later. Social is your friends list and stuff for co-op. Archive is going to be achievements and unlock cinematics. Again, we'll see all of that. I just wanted to quickly say that. Next drop, 5 cycles. Basically, every drop is 5 cycles of time, and if you had a mission selected, it would tell you the mission you had selected. Next to that is this currency known as Kerenskis. It's lore accurate. It is basically the equivalent of C-bills in terms of what you would be using to make purchases. Next to that is your merit points. You unlock merit points by leveling up. That's the only way thus far you can unlock merit points. So you want to spend these wisely. You spend merit points for different things such as unlocking certain mech chassis and doing certain upgrades. And we'll go over that when we get there. Next to that is your level of honor and what level you're at versus what you need to get to the next level. Right underneath that, we see unread notifications. If you have notifications that pop up, or for every reason, such as research complete or something else, it'll say, hey, unread notifications, so you know to check them out. You click on that. This happens to be something because of the, I believe, Collector's Edition, I believe. Not a big deal. Not something to worry about here, but this is where you see other notifications for things such as, hey, you unlocked a chassis, or hey, your research is done, or whatever the case is. The main part of the screen is Mission Central. So here we see different NPCs, including our character, and a holoprojector. This isn't interactable with the exception of the holoprojector. It's just a background screen, kind of like it was back in Mechwarrior 2. Of course, it was different then. Different game, different technology. But the point is, clicking around won't do anything, but if you click on the planet in the holoprojector, that'll take you to your map for your campaign and what missions you have available. As you go through the campaign, you'll see this. Completed missions will stay up there up until they reset everything at certain points throughout the campaign, and then missions you have available to you will be there to review and select and whatever else. Below that, we see Mission Select, same idea, taking us to here, and Notifications, which takes us back to the notifications we have. That is Mission Central. This is basically getting you into your next mission for the campaign. Next to that is Facilities, and there's a lot here. So You can pause and read this. I'm not going to read it verbatim because, well, it's right there on the screen, clear to read. So give it a pause and then continue the video so we can move on. But basically, the mech bay is where you will assign mechs to different pilots, where you will take care of repairing mechs, where you will customize and modify your mechs if you so desire. Modify mech is how you can do things such as change the camo pattern, view the mech info. So if that's your mech info, you can change camo pattern, or you can assign your weapon groups if you want to change it. Camo patterns are the different patterns you currently have unlocked, and you can edit these if you wanted to, further customize it. If you did and you saved it, it wouldn't override this. Invasion would stay, and then you have a new one based on the invasion camo, so that's pretty cool. As you saw, just like in Mercenaries, you can apply it to the mech specifically or apply to all for every mech, which is pretty neat. Edit loadout is where you can view the current loadout. You can view it by section, center torso, the head, the left torso, and so on, which is pretty neat. You also can do Omnipod loadouts. So we currently have the Mistlinks in its prime configuration. With the Omnipod loadout, we can see we have access to alternate A, B, C, and D. Sometimes we'll see A, B, and S, or something like that weird, right? So we're not going to get every Omnipod loadout configuration in the game, in this game. Some stuff has tech we don't have access to at this point in the timeline, for example. In any case, you can see they're locked and they cost mech experience to unlock. So we'll talk more about that once we go through the rest of it. But this is where you can unlock official Omnipod loadouts for the particular mech chassis. And you can see how it kind of changes the visuals depending upon which one you want to unlock, which is kind of neat. So you could also, set up your mech in a custom loadout that way as well. You can assign a pilot to it, or you could drag the mech and swap out what pilot has what. Repair-wise, I think it also you just right-click it so you don't have to hold down. But in any case, repair-wise, we can go ahead and see what's going on here. Obviously nothing right now because we haven't done this mission yet. These are brand new mechs for us, so they're perfectly repaired and all that. But we get to see a loadout. So we get to see the mech in question, the health for the next mission, assigned technicians, idle technicians, requisition technicians, and technician efficiency and upgrades. So let's go through it. Assigned technicians is 0 of 5 right now. I can assign a maximum of 5 to that particular mech chassis. Don't really worry about assigning stuff necessarily, at least not for the bulk of things, unless you're really specifically trying to do something, because the game will automatically assign technicians to mechs as needed for repairing. But if you want to prioritize a particular chassis, you can always make sure that a certain chassis has the maximum of 5 when it comes to being repaired. No matter how many technicians you have, each chassis can only get 5 technicians assigned to it. But we can requisition a technician, and we can do 1, 2, 3, however many we can afford, and we can see it costs merit points. This is important. Merit points are used to requisition technicians and also upgrade the repair facility for technician efficiency, amongst other things. So keep that in mind. So we currently have 10 technicians. Our technicians can do 10 repair points per cycle. Since we have 10 of them, we can do a total of 100 repair per cycle. Missions are 5 cycle intervals, so you get a sense of how much we can repair in 5 cycles. We can make that more efficient by upgrading it. We get a +1, so it'll be 11 per cycle, going to 110 per cycle. Obviously, as we upgrade our technicians and get more, the amount of repair we can do in totality will increase and get, compounded more or less a little bit. I don't know if compounded is the right word, but accumulate more. There is a limit to the total upgrade for technicians, but I don't believe there's a real limit to the amount of technicians you can have. The only limit you really have is that each mech can only have a maximum of 5 technicians assigned to it. So, what this means is if the mech is sufficiently damaged enough, you might not get it repaired to 100% by the next mission. So either you're going in damaged or you're buying a new mech of the same type or similar type to use for that mission while the other one's getting repaired. that was a lot, and that was just the mech base. So facilities is kind of loaded with stuff to do. Moving on, we have the Science Lab. The Science Lab has research, chassis upgrades, chassis milestones. Let's start with chassis milestones. Again, you can pause and read this, but it's pretty basic. Basically, use the chassis, do these certain things, and you unlock these milestones. These milestones will reward experience for that particular mech chassis, but on top of that, certain chassis also unlock camo patterns based on completing a total of 5 milestones. These milestones are pretty much all the same. So assault mech kills, heavy mech kills, light mech kills, in general, medium mech kills, using the chassis, turret kills, and vehicle kills. You meet your criteria, and you get that reward, and you do 5 of those to complete this milestone, and in the case of the Nova, we unlock the Hot Rod camo pattern. So that's kind of neat. Helpful because both unlocking Omnipods and doing chassis upgrades will need specific mech chassis experience to do so. So that's basically what it tells you here. Again, pause it if you wish. But these upgrades are the same for every mech. It's turning speed, torso angle, torso movement speed, reverse speed, top speed, acceleration, and deceleration capability. They all cost mech experience. These things aren't going to make a mech completely broken or crazy, but they're very nice to have, and this is a way you can spend mech experience once you have the Omnipods you want. So that brings us to research. This is the big mouthful. Definitely pause and read this. This is important. There's a lot going on here. In my first playthrough, I read this, but then I just went and did things willy-nilly, and it wasn't until much later on through my first playthrough that I really realized I was wasting a lot of potential here. So, still completed a campaign, but this is definitely something to not just wing it. So, what's going on here? So we have active research, which would be different things we've purchased for research if we had them. Completed research, which would be stuff we finished if we did any. We just started, so we don't have anything. And then available research. And this is a laundry list of stuff that you can research. Now, with that said, in the middle here, we can see research points to complete, component cost, and then rewards. And underneath that is available components. We see mech components, weapon components, and equipment components. So basically, the component cost, think of it as currency. You need to have that number of components to start the research. The research points to complete is what you accumulate over time. So, for example, this is 250, but this is 950. We don't need to be able to make 950 research points to do this. We just need to make a total of 950 research points over time to complete this research, which happens after every mission you accrue research points. So, a little mouthy, a little wordy, or a little bit of a mouthful, a little wordy, sure, but definitely important. On this side, we see our max salvage claim per mission, the amount of scientists we have, and research points generated, as well as next mission in 5 cycles and the research points generated therein. All right, so let's break this down. We could also sell components for Kerenskis. We don't get merit except for leveling up. So to requisition scientists, it's just like repair technicians. You get the quantity, it has a certain merit cost, you purchase it, and that's your new total we need to do. We can upgrade the science lab, much like repair efficiency. We can generate an extra research point per cycle, bumping it up from 50 to 55 because we currently have 5 scientists. Each can do 10 a cycle. So you can see again, just like in repair efficiency, how this can accumulate a good amount of points. The difference here is there is no maximum per mech concept like there is in repair, so this is just generating research points. Much like repair efficiency, science lab upgrades have a cap. Scientists, I do not believe, do so. I haven't found it yet anyway. And then there's upgrade salvage operations. So at the end of every mission, we get a total of 300 points we can salvage in our claim. If we upgrade this, it'll be 330. This has a maximum, and I believe at maximum it doubles this from 300 to 600. So this is very helpful because these mech components, weapon components, and equipment components can be pretty costly, like 400 here, 100 there, And this is just for level 1. These upgrades can go all the way to level 3. You have to complete level 1 to get to level 2 to get to level 3, and the costs go up. So you definitely want to start, generating, or not generating, but salvaging a lot of your components as fast as you can, which is why I tend to prioritize salvage operations sooner rather than later personally. But in any case, that's this screen for research. It's a lot, but it's pretty helpful. And there's way more stuff here than I believe you'll really be able to unlock in terms of researching in one playthrough. So you really want to kind of prioritize certain things, for sure. I like armor, and there's also structural stuff. But in any case, we'll see what I pick once we get to the future parts of the series. But research is pretty important. This can really help you out. And when I was first doing my first playthrough, for a good half of the campaign, I was just going basically in order of whatever was up here and just clicking it away, not paying attention. And then later on I realized, oh wow, I could have been much more effective if I just paid more attention. So that's how this works in terms of research. Lastly, marketplace for facilities. Marketplace is where you purchase and sell stuff. Pretty straightforward. So you can pause this and read it if you want. Let's look at equipment. This is going to be your probe, your anti-missile system, ammunition, and other equipment that isn't a weapon for the mech. You get a little bit of information about it, not bad. Pretty standard. Weapons. This is your weapons. Doesn't matter what they are, ballistic, missile, or energy. Here's what we see. Pretty straightforward stuff. And you could sell, just like with the other equipment. And then there's battle mechs. You can purchase mechs, you can sell the mechs you have, and you can unlock. In order to eventually purchase the mechs you see here on this screen, we have to not only reach the honor level, but then unlock them after the fact. So once we get to level 3, I can then spend merit points to unlock the adder. Two important things of note. Well, really one important thing to note, one observation for how I personally do things. And I think most people will do things. Firstly, when you unlock the mech with your merit points, you get one of that chassis automatically. So when I unlock the adder, I'll get an adder. I didn't know that at first, so I purchased an adder after unlocking it, and then I had 2 for no reason because I didn't need to at the time. So just something important to keep in mind in case you're worried about conserving your Kerenskys. Secondly, when it comes to unlocking these mechs, you unlock them in their prime configuration only. To get the other configurations, you need to use the mech chassis and then accrue enough experience to unlock those Omnipod loadout configurations. When it comes to purchasing weapons and equipment, I don't really ever purchase these. The only reason you really would is if you're making a custom loadout, because when you go to your mech bay and we go to edit loadout and we go to Omnipod loadout, you can see we have access to A, B, C, D, and S in the case of the Kit Fox. So if you were to unlock one of these and then you wanted to apply the loadout and save it so the mech is now in that loadout, if you don't have the equipment needed to do so, the game will say, hey, you need to purchase this equipment. Would you like to do so now? And you just click yes. It spends the total number of currencies you need, automatically purchases, and applies it to the loadout. So that's why I never made purchases myself, because I always like to do stuff in canon loadout configurations most of the time for the clans. So that's what I do personally. But I understand the fun in making up your own loadout. So if you are doing that, you will need to purchase the equipment you need for it. But if you're just going to try and unlock Omnipod sets, you don't need to make any equipment purchases or weapon purchases. It'll automatically do that if you need to for anything you need, and you just tell it to do it, and it does it, and you're good. So that's pretty nice and efficient. In any case, that is facilities. That's a lot to go through in facilities. Remember, science lab, when it comes to research, definitely I like upgrading salvage and science lab stuff, because this can really help you out, especially if you start upgrading for the long haul. So I recommend to upgrade stuff not based on what you currently have access to, but what you're looking to really unlock. Like, I like PPCs, so I definitely want to kind of work on that earlier rather than later, personally. Anyways, that's your facilities. Barracks. You can, again, read this if you wish. I'm basically going to go over that without just reading this. You have your sim pod. Your sim pod lets you play whatever campaign missions you completed, so you get to re-experience them. The difference here is, for example, in the Huntress arc, we had a Summoner, a Mad Dog, a Stormcrow, and all that jazz, right? We don't have those mechs right now. So we're not going to have access to those mechs right now. We have the tonnage maximum we're allowed, and then we fill that with whatever mechs we currently have access to. So you can really change up the loadout of things. Same thing for your trial of position, which is pretty cool. Trading missions is just a shooting range in a combat arena. Pretty cool. You have the maximum tonnage you need, which is 500, because the maximum weight you have is 100 ton per mech, and there's 5 of you, so you can use whatever mechs you want that you have access to in these training mission simulations, which is pretty cool. Lets you play around. Now, every pilot, including yourself, has skill upgrades that cost experience, and they get experience from going through the missions with you. Right, getting kills, staying alive, all that jazz, not needing to eject, all that leads to more experience to be unlocked. Now, having said that, the first 3 are all going to be the same in this column, and then the second column will be vary depending upon the pilot. One thing they may mention that you don't see here yet is once you get like 10 or so like unlocks, you'll get a certain kind of like affinity. And you can pick a specific mech or a weight class, and they generate more experience while in that particular mech or weight class, which is pretty neat. You can see here, Liam, for example, has 2 ranks of electronic warfare, because, as was made clear in the cutscenes, he's all about hacking and doing stuff that way, and it carries over into actually already starting off with some stuff in electronic warfare, which I think is a pretty neat touch. And as you can see, Ezra does not have electronic warfare. Instead, he's got energy and ballistic, and Mia will have ballistic, and Naomi will have missile, and so on. So this kind of shows you more or less what kind of mechs eventually you should maybe, if you want to play towards that, assign these pilots, which is pretty cool. So that's your barracks. Much more straightforward in facilities. Social is your friends. It's like I said, unless you're doing co-op and stuff, you don't have to worry about it. And Archive shows you the cinematics you've unlocked. Now remember, we just did 2 missions, the Huntress arc. This is part 1.5, and we've unlocked 7 cutscenes already. So this is a pretty cutscene heavy game, which is actually really cool. And then achievement-wise, we can see what achievements we've unlocked in this particular campaign playthrough. I've unlocked a bunch more of these in my first playthrough, but this is per playthrough to show you what you've done thus far, which is kind of cool. So that's pretty much everything here. Like I said, it's a bit much to kind of just try and go over as we're just doing a normal playthrough. So I wanted to take the time to really go over it for you here, because Mission Central is pretty straightforward. Barracks and Archive and everything else is pretty straightforward. It's really the facilities that has a lot going on in there. It's pretty heavy and stuff to do, from repairing to science lab to marketplace. So I wanted to just kind of give you a breakdown there. In any case, that's all I got for you on this one. Thanks so much for taking the time to check it out. I know it's a little bit long, but not as long as part 1, and won't be as long as the other parts either, more than likely, because some of these missions can really take some time. But I didn't want to bog down future parts by trying to explain stuff as I go, and instead just do it more naturally and organically and provide commentary on what's going on instead. So now you have a pretty good sense of how to navigate your user interface in between missions here for maximum effect, hopefully. With that said, if you made it to the very end of this video, consider subscribing, because hey, you seem to potentially like this sort of stuff, and you'll be notified when more of this playthrough goes live and everything on this channel. Or not live, but it's uploaded. But speaking of live, you can check out the link in the video description section to check out my Twitch stream channel. I do Mechwarrior stuff and non-Mechwarrior stuff there, so leaving a follow and subscribing here are both free. That way you can be alerted of when things either get posted or when I go live. In any case, don't forget to go outside, touch some grass, be mobile, do something. Don't be locked up all day unless the weather is absolutely atrocious. And until next time, take care.